Thou shalt not criticize the woke right. Few people now remember what the word woke meant before it became an insult. These days it is used by those of us who believe in reality to mock the lunatic fringe of the left, but it was not always thus. While the word has come to mean an ideology obsessed with victimhood, identity and the falsification of history to suit today's political agenda, those who once proudly called themselves woke intended something else. It was, at that time, a self-congratulatory label, which meant, first and foremost, being aware of and actively attentive to important facts and issues, especially in relation to racial and social justice. As has been discussed ad nauseum, in practice what this awareness of facts pertaining to various forms of justice meant was a framework in which certain groups were victims and other groups were victimizers. Some groups were suffering, and their suffering was the responsibility of other groups which had conspired to mistreat and take advantage of them. But a conspiratorial worldview of this nature cannot be maintained on faith alone. Explanations had to be given for why this false narrative was in fact not false at all. First, and highly relevant to our imminent discussion of the woke right, the woke left never claimed that the arguments they were making were true. Instead, rather than attempting to prove the impossible, they wisely made an entirely different claim. Truth, they argued, is merely a linguistic projection of power. The powerful brainwash the rest of us into seeing the things they want us to believe as the truth. To claim that something is true is to abuse the power you have over others. It is an act of linguistic violence. This is why if you were to assert that you know how many genders there are, or quote facts about contentious social issues, such as police violence against minorities, that would be used as evidence of your poor character and nefarious intent. All it showed was your bias, fragility, and so on. If this sounds a little abstract, a more concrete and even more relevant example is what the wokesters did to history. They attempted to destroy, both physically and reputationally, anything about the past that served as a reminder of the achievements of our society. Statues were torn down and defaced. Historical figures on whom we'd looked with pride or to whom we looked for inspiration were attacked. Why? Because history, and the truth more broadly, is to humans what roots are to trees. It is a way of knowing which way is up and which way is down. Strip a people of their history, destroy the concept of truth itself, and they're left unmoored, floating in limbo, pushed and pulled in random directions by every new seductive force that comes along. As Hannah Arendt powerfully explained, the constant lying is not aimed at making the people believe a lie, but at ensuring that no one believes anything anymore. The people who can no longer distinguish between the truth and lies cannot distinguish between right and wrong. And such a people, deprived of the power to think and judge, is, without knowing and willing it, completely subjected to the rule of lies. With such a people, you can do whatever you want. The woke logic operates like this. There are good and bad identity groups. You can't trust anything you've been taught about history or anything you're being told today because your beliefs are based on lies spread by people who are in control of society. There is another select group of people, us, who understand what's really going on, and we're bravely raising awareness of the issue. Anyone who disagrees with us or criticizes us is doing so because they're a bad person, and their criticism and disagreement just proves that we are right and they're bad. The woke revolution which occurred over the last 10 years was bad enough. But the iron law of reality is that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Having lived through a decade of this race Marxism which spread through our elite institutions like an aggressive cancer, I believe we're now witnessing the emergence of an equivalent phenomenon on the fringes of the right. Tucker Carlson has just hosted a man called Daryl Cooper on his show, describing him as maybe the best and most honest popular historian in the United States. Cooper, who goes by the online moniker Martyr Maid, is indeed incredibly honest. In addition to thinking that Adolf Hitler, a genocidal mass murderer, strolling through the Paris he had just conquered is highly preferable to drag queens, Cooper also explained that Churchill was the chief villain of World War II. The thread he posted on X following his interview with Carlson is so historically illiterate that every major claim he made was debunked on X itself within hours with community notes and in articles published by prominent historians such as Victor Davis Hansel, Neil Ferguson and others. But this video is not about Cooper. I do not find him remotely interesting. There are and have always been lying charlatans and overconfident fools. What is interesting is the warm welcome he received on Tucker Carlson's show and what that represents. The woke right, for which Carlson is the undisputed spiritual leader, is feeling its way to a logic of its own. It is far from being fully formed, but it goes something like this. You can't believe anything you're being told. Look how they lied to you about Trump. True. COVID. True. And Biden winning the 2020 election. False. What if they also lied to you about everything else? We don't claim to know the truth. We're just asking questions. But we know what the truth is not, whatever the elites are telling you. Look how triggered they are by us just asking questions. That's evidence of their bias and fragility. It proves we are right. This is where historical revisionism comes in. Just like the woke left, the woke right has come to hate the West for the reasons I detailed in my previous video. But what is more, the what else are they lying about question is a slippery slope down which you inexorably slide if it becomes the lens through which you see the world. Just as a woke leftist sees a conspiracy against him that he calls systemic racism in every workplace, classroom, and interaction, so a woke rightist sees a conspiracy against him in every institution, media publication, and historical consensus. Importantly, disagreement and criticism only reinforces his belief in the conspiracy. Note how this is an exact mirror image of the woke left's approach to debate. Put forward false assertions, make no attempt to back them up when challenged, and use the criticism you receive as evidence of both your rightness and your righteousness. The one element that is still missing, which is why the ideology has yet to properly take shape, is that the scapegoat group behind the conspiracy is still unclear. To the woke left, straight white men are the obvious source of the world's evils, but the woke right has struggled to find an equally plausible culprit. They've experimented with globalists, Marxists, and elites, but none of them fit the bill because they do not readily conjure an image of the suspect group in the mind of the average viewer. If you asked 10 woke rightists to draw a picture of a globalist, a Marxist, or a member of the conspiratorial elite, they'd likely struggle. And because elites is what they've gone with for the moment, the logic doesn't really work. When most people on the woke right think of the elites, they imagine a cabal of senior Democrats, billionaire funders, and the leaders of other major institutions. And the problem with that is that it's extremely difficult to believe that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are orchestrating a conspiracy, given that they appear unable to get through a press conference.
Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. You can beat President Putin. President Zelensky. I'm going to come to the overflow room.
This is where the war in Israel has come in handy. For people like Candace Owens, another darling of the woke right, whose ignorance and conspiratorial delusions are matched only by her charisma and bombastic arrogance, it has provided the opportunity to hone in on something a little more tangible. She currently spends most of her time debating weird rabbis and ranting online about Frankists. I don't claim to know what she means exactly, but for some reason her audience pepper her tweets with replies encouraging her to just say Jews. Whether the rest of the woke right moves in this direction remains to be seen. For now, on the mainstream right, the taboo against associating with illiterate Nazi apologists of the type that Carlson's just hosted has held up remarkably well. We'll see if that remains the case over the months to come. For an actual history of Churchill, by the way, I recommend our discussion with historian Andrew Roberts or the conversation he had with Douglas Murray here on YouTube.
He was involved in 3 car crashes, 2 plane crashes. He went into no man's land in the First World War some 30 times. He got so close to the German trenches he could actually hear them speaking in their trenches. He once said that there's nothing so exhilarating in life as to be shot at without result. The Conservatives tried to deselect him, and every single thing that he said turned out to be right, and everything that they said turned out to be wrong.
If you enjoy these videos, please remember that they're available in my Substack days, weeks, and sometimes even months ahead of time. Make sure you head on over there now by clicking the link in the description and subscribe. As you know, I've been concerned about both the economic and political direction of travel of Western countries in recent years. That being the case, I'm keen to protect my family in case things continue to get worse. That's why I'm making sure to keep a portion of my savings in gold. The reason the price of everything continues to go up is that governments keep printing money. When they do, inflation is inevitable. What does inflation mean? It's just a fancy word for the value of your money being diluted over time. This is what's happened to the value of the dollar in our lifetimes. Gold is a great way to preserve the fruits of your hard work, while the value of your dollars, pounds, and euros is continually being eroded. My gold dealer, the Pure Gold Company, works across the world providing excellent service and competitive prices. I recently bought some of these Victoria sovereigns. The good thing about these coins is that unlike many investments, they're exempt from capital gains tax. The Pure Gold Company keep my coins in a vault for me, but they can also deliver them to your home. Go to thepuregoldcompany.co.uk/Konstantin-Kisin to protect your wealth today.